So if you're a projector in human design, you know that our strategy is to wait for the invitation. And it's one of the big skills in terms of living your design as a projector is really getting to know what is an invitation, what constitutes an invitation, and what doesn't. And it's one of the biggest questions that we receive here. So we wanted to answer some of the most common questions about what constitutes an invitation, and do I need to wait for an invitation before doing X, Y, and Z? So let's get into the questions. Do I need an invitation for wanting to move, for my health, career, or somewhere to go somewhere warm and not polluted? It depends. With moving, if you're living with somebody else, like a romantic partner or a roommate or someone that you want to go and live with, that's something that they have to invite you for. If you just want to move to a different place because you feel called to live there, don't wait for the invitation. Someone calling to an event and insisting I should please come, but I don't get a good feeling about it. No, unless that event requires you to share your gifts. So attending events, going out with friends, those kind of things don't need invitations unless there is something there that you're going to be sharing that needs recognition for from the other party in order for you to share it. So going to parties, you don't need an invitation. However, if you don't get a good feeling about something, then don't go. That's a separate thing from an invitation. Your intuition is a separate thing, as are signs. So those things are not, they kind of run independently inside your system, where invitations have to come from the outside world. Wanting to host a dinner party with your friends, should you never host if you have to invite people? Okay, so here's the thing about the invitation. The invitation is only really when you are here to share your gifts, to share what you see as a projector, that special thing that you see that no one else sees. So inviting is less of a literal thing and more of an energetic thing. So that's to do with you being, being your projector self out in the world and seeing what it is that you see. If you are hosting a dinner party, then there doesn't necessarily need to be an exchange of gifts, your energetic gifts or your skills there. So you can invite people in terms of a literal meaning of what the invitation means, absolutely. So if you love to host people, go ahead. I want to start a podcast. How can I go about that without waiting for an invitation? This is what's really interesting, and this is obviously where it gets nuanced, is that you can put your gifts and your skills out there. You just can't push them on other people. You can't try to force it or make it happen. So making your skills and your talents and qualities available for people to then come in and find you is absolutely okay. So you could start a podcast, you can create your art, you can take photographs, you can do all those things that really excite you and the things that you're really good at that you see in a different way that nobody else sees, but you cannot advertise them. You cannot reach out to people and tell them you want them to, you can't reach out to an art gallery and say, that was one of the other questions we got, you can't reach out to an art gallery and say, I want to display my stuff there. You can't reach out to a similar podcast and say, I want to be a guest on your podcast. You can absolutely start your own and talk and share what it is that you are about, because that's kind of like your billboard. That's how people find you, and that's what creates invitations for people to come find you. So you absolutely can start a podcast. You absolutely can hire someone to help you make that podcast happen. But in terms of inviting guests on, you would need to make sure that they're already people who you feel recognized by. So it wouldn't be someone, for example, that you really admire, that you think it would be super hard to get hold of, that has never met you before, but you absolutely could invite on people that you already feel see you for who you truly are and what your gifts are. Being asked to consider applying for a job that I don't really want. Well, if you don't want it, you should be saying no to it anyway. But it's only an invitation if it's coming from the person that wants to hire you. So if you have a friend saying to you, you should apply for this job, that's not really an invitation, because they're not going to be the ones that are receiving the gifts that you're sharing anyway. So a job invitation has to come from the potential employer, collaborator, that person that is going to be, a part of what it is that you share in this world. An aha moment that comes through your authority. For example, the G center or the emotional center. No, aha moments are, the signs from the universe or your intuition. So those are internal. The invitation has to do with the way that you exchange energy with the world around you. So that comes from the external world. two projectors feeling the other one has attraction to you but not sure if it's an invitation. So this is funny where it gets into a really tricky spot with two projectors when we're talking about dating and stuff, or collaborating with work and things. Obviously in this case she's talking about dating. So yes, it's funny because the ideal sort of way that you would want two projectors to get into a relationship is that you feel that there is mutual recognition and desire for each other, and that it almost kind of like seems to fall into place without someone else inviting someone else. It doesn't have to be this necessarily. You don't have to have the chat of is it exclusive or whatever until long after you actually already feel like you've gotten there. So don't wait for the discussion or the formal invitation before getting into a place where you've already got that, and you'll find that the discussion will come later just as a formality basically. But you almost have to feel like there is mutual invitation happening, and the manifestation of what that looks like is happening before you think about even do I need to have this discussion, or does it need to be made official or anything like that. You want to feel like it's already kind of happening. A job interview that I applied to instead of them reaching out. This is a really interesting one, because if there is a like a job that's posted or whatever, you absolutely can apply, but what really matters is the energy with which you apply. So again, if it's something that you're sort of, let's say, feeling lack mentality around, or if you feel like you have to get it, or you're trying to reach it or grab it too much, that isn't an invitation. Whereas actually if there's been a word put out for we need this kind of person and we're looking for this this set of job skills and whatever, you absolutely can apply, but be very almost cold about it. And I don't mean in your demeanor, but just very, very formal and very technical about it. So you can absolutely apply, you can submit your CV and wait to see if they like the sound of it, and then they'd reach out to you further. But please don't do the I'd be amazing at this, or I think I'm good for the job because blah blah blah, without first being asked a little more about what it is that you do, and have that person then follow up. So you can apply in terms of just submitting your the facts, the details, but don't do any more than that. What's your take on initiating meeting with friends? Half the time there's an invitation and half the time there isn't. What's interesting about invitations is that you also don't have to keep on waiting for them to come in each time. If you're in a relationship, for example, or you are, you have a long-standing friendship, you have to genuinely feel that they are inviting you, that they see you, that they recognize you, that they love you, that they see you for who you really are, is the most important part. In which case, I like to call that open invitation, where the best people in your life are people who feel like they always want to know, they always want to have your energy. They don't maybe always want to know what your take on things is. They don't always want to hear your opinions. That's another, that's kind of the not self or the shadow aspect of the projectors, but that they always want to see you, that they appreciate you. When you feel fully appreciated in a friendship, you don't need to constantly be the one that's, it's not an excuse to not make any effort to maintain friendships. You know what I mean? So you have good friendships with people, you absolutely can say, let's go to dinner, or let's grab a bite, or do you want to go for a run? And the same thing with your other half. Once you're in a relationship or in a dynamic where there is recognition and you feel seen enough, then, you can kind of, make arrangements with people, absolutely. Do energetic invitations count, and how can you tell if it's an energetic invitation? This is such a good question, because every invitation, a good invitation, what we're talking about here, a human design invitation, is an energetic invitation actually. So this is a part of the process that you kind of have to flex like a muscle, and it gets stronger and stronger, because in the beginning it obviously is confusing when we're deconditioning what constitutes an invitation and what doesn't. And it doesn't matter if we get it wrong, a bunch of times. It just matters that we're trying to practice and we're trying to get better at it, and we're resisting where we can see it. So far, as time goes on, we'll be able to see more and more places where we didn't necessarily see that something was an invitation or not an invitation, and it's totally okay to get it wrong. But essentially, an invitation isn't that you literally have someone asking you formally or getting on one knee to ask you every time you need to grab a coffee, or it's a golden envelope that comes in the mail. It's an energetic feeling of someone being interested, someone seeing you, someone from a more work perspective wanting to know what it is that you share, from a friendship or relationship perspective seeing you for exactly who you are, and wanting to be part of that energy or to receive that energy. It depends on the situation that we're talking about. So what you want to be doing is obviously paying attention to the energetics behind things, rather than getting so caught up on, the formalities of what an invitation is. It's nothing to do with a party invitation. The human design invitation is a totally different thing. How can I be seen as a blogger or influencer when reaching out / engaging is so expensive? If you've identified that you really genuinely think that's something that you authentically want and something that you're really good at, and that's where your skill lies, or one of your skills lie, then what will happen is that, again, like we were talking about the previous incident, you just have to put yourself out there. You just have to share. You just have to post a lot of content, and content in the way that is, unique to you, the way that you do it that's different than other people, the things that you see that other people don't see. So focus on more curating your take on things, doing things in a new, different, more efficient, more upgraded, more improved way, and then trust that the invitations in the form of brand partnerships or sponsorships or whatever will reach out to you. So in terms of if you are an influencer and a blogger and you're a projector, you definitely don't want to be, reaching out to people to sponsor you or anything like that. This is where the trust really comes in, because you have to basically say to the universe that I'm going to put myself out there, I'm going to own my gifts, I'm going to truly see myself for who I am, and I trust that the invitations will follow. And that's where, that's where we need to do the work around it. So you're probably better off trying to see yourself more as a blogger and influencer and owning that and feeling worthy enough to do that, rather than, trying to do so much on the physical plane. And the other thing that's worth saying is that, just make sure that you're identifying that that's something that you're really supposed to be doing, that you're in your niche when you're doing that, because anytime that you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, anytime you're sharing skills that are not your authentic skills that your soul came here to share, then invitations won't really be coming your way, because that's the universe's way of saying you're not in your magic lane. So of course I'm not going to encourage this kind of behavior, if that makes sense. So when I was doing other jobs, I really genuinely believed that the only way I could do things was to push and force and hustle, because the universe wasn't sending me invitations. Whereas when you're doing something that you're really supposed to be doing, that's kind of truly aligned, then invitations come without us needing to make stuff happen so much. So glad that as a manifestor I don't have to worry about waiting for the invitation. I mean, look, there's different pros and cons with every energy type, and usually when we're first finding out about who we are, we wish that we were another type. So this is kind of fun, because I like that the person that is a manifestor is realizing what is good about her design, and I get jealous of generators and the way that they do things all the time too. So let's also just remind ourselves to kind of take this lightly and to understand that our soul chose our design before we came here. So if you're a projector and you're listening to this, then you have some karma to do around not pushing and forcing, and around allowing and around seeing yourself more, which is why you have to wait for the invitation. But it's great that other people also don't get jealous of the way we do things, and we don't get jealous of the way that they do things, and it's a work in progress. But the more you accept that the way you live your own design makes you more successful and more thriving in your own, then it's easier to see other people's process as also beautiful for them. When someone reaches out to you that you've had to put on the back burner, can I revisit? So this is a really interesting one, because obviously you're not then sure if the invitation still stands or not. If we were doing a session together, I would say, is there a way of sort of getting back in touch with that person without seeming so forceful or seeming so out of the blue? Is there a subtle way of, just making contact again, and then gauging their level of interest and seeing if they want to re-ask without you so much as kind of bluntly re-mentioning that? It depends. If it was 2 months ago and you still feel like they're probably still looking for someone to hire, or they still need what they need, that's a very different thing to 7 years ago, and it would totally depend on the situation here. So there isn't a blanket yes or no answer. You really have to kind of use your own intuition in terms of how long ago it was, what was involved, what is it that they wanted you to share. Are you still sharing that thing, or have you moved on? Are you coming at it from a place of need or lack because there was money there or an opportunity there? When you said no to that thing, were you more in a place where you could afford to say no, and maybe now you're revisiting it because you feel you have to, or are you revisiting it because you actually, things have changed in your life and you've seen things a different way and you've realized that it's actually a really good thing for you to be doing, and it's something that's really aligned with what your gifts are, then that would make it more of a yes. Friends telling me to go to Maui. Well, it depends if they're going there with you or not, but like I was saying with the friendships, if there's an open invitation, absolutely, go with them if you feel like going with them. If they're not going with you and they're just telling you that you should go, that's not an invitation. That's maybe a sign, if that's coming from a person that really cares about you or someone that can see you better than you see yourself. As projectors, we don't really see, because we see into the other so clearly. It creates like a paradox, because it means that we don't see ourselves so clearly. So sometimes, a good decision for your life sometimes comes from someone who really cares for you and sees you that isn't you. So it could be that a friend is really getting a strong feeling that you belong there, or that, that would be a good thing for you to do. It's coming from a place of good intention. It might be worth considering, not necessarily definitely listening to, but just considering. But if they're telling you to go because they think you should and it's a good idea, or they think that, they just, I don't know, if it's not coming from a place of truly feeling seen, again, that's not an invitation, because you're not going there to share your gifts necessarily, or it doesn't sound like it from the question anyway. An announcement inviting you to submit your work or writing to a scholarship program. Yes, so if it's submitting your work, like I said, you can literally just submit the facts without pushing yourself or promoting yourself, telling them why they think you're special or anything like that. Unless they've asked you to answer that question. Writing to a scholarship, that's a really interesting question, because as a projector, your learning is so important, you cultivating what it is that you know or do or see. So it's not about sharing your gifts. A scholarship would be more about what you're learning, what you're absorbing. So you don't need an invitation for learning things. Can using a recruiter to find a new job work as an invitation? This is interesting, because if you're pushing or soliciting, it doesn't matter if you're doing it through other people. That's still your energy that's needing people, looking for the invitation, craving an invitation, wanting an invitation. So if you're using a recruiter to do that, then no. However, if you're using a recruiter to kind of look around and see what companies that are aligned with you are posting jobs, then great, because that's basically just asking someone to kind of do the refining for you or do the trawling for you, which could be great if you just don't have the headspace or the time or the resources to kind of do all that looking for who's asking yet. So yes. Would something coming in threes be an invite? i.e. something is mentioned multiple times in various ways to me. That is a sign, not an invitation. So it's not the go-ahead to reach out to someone or to solicit or to go and make something happen, to initiate. Getting lots of powerful feedback about a wellness program I started. This is a really good question, because the wellness program that you start, it's a good thing if you obviously are just putting your product out there, making yourself available rather than really pushing it. If you're making yourself available and you've had lots of good feedback about it from people who've actually started using it, then yeah, it's basically a sign from the universe to keep going, that you're in your magic lane, that you should keep doing what it is you're doing. So it is an invitation, but it's not really an invitation, because you don't need an invitation to create your art, to start doing what it is that you're amazing at. It's just a nudge that, you're in your magic lane. What about when something appears in your life? Is that an invitation? No. An invitation has to be much more, there has to be much more of a pull from an invitation. It has to be a curiosity, a recognition, a being seen. Something just appearing in your life, that's again more in the realm of signs and synchronicities, which all of us, every energy type, is exposed to. I'm a wedding planner and I have a team that I need to ask to do certain tasks. How do I go about that? If you are obviously doing something that you're supposed to be doing and you have a team underneath you that is helping you make that happen, they recognize you. That's, you'd have to feel out whether they have open invitation. Are they on board with what you do? Does it really resonate with them? Do they love what they do for you? Is it a team that feels really aligned? And if so, again, you can absolutely ask them to do things all day, because that's what you're basically here to do. They don't need to invite you every single morning about what is it that you have to tell me or what is it that you want me to do today, because that's why they signed up for you in the first place. So that's much more of an ongoing open invitation situation. However, obviously, if you can see that someone in your team is feeling uninspired, or you're feeling like they never really invited you because you hired them because you needed someone, that would be a good time to really pay attention to how you can curate your team and how you can maybe release some other people from maybe being bitter about their jobs or not loving their jobs, where they might need you to sit down and have a conversation with them to figure out a better way to do it, or they might need you to release them, and that could be the best thing that ever happened to them. And because you're a projector, you might be able to see these things. So pay attention and tune into people's general interest, and has that open invitation started to fade maybe? And is there a solution to that, or is it time to cut ties? Can invitations come from the universe as a feeling or knowing, or does it have to come from people? It has to come from people, because the invitation, the very fact of waiting for an invitation, is the way that you exchange energy with other people around you, with the universe around you. So it can't be, if you feel like there's something signaling at you from, a sign or a billboard or something someone said or whatever, those are little nudges from the universe for you to get more in your magic lane, for you to hone your niche, for you to hone your skills, which is just as useful, but it has nothing to do with giving you the go-ahead to share what it is that you have with the rest of the world. You giving yourself, going into people and really sharing with those people. Quitting a job. Yes, you don't need to wait for an invitation for that. If you feel like it's no longer lighting you up, it's no longer making you happy, it's no longer aligned with what it is you do, you can quit. You don't need to wait for an invitation for that.